The measure of a man is what he does with power.
Scenes of the Zodiac. Yes, the Zodiac Killer. An elusive figure that tormented the state of California during the late 60s and early 70s. Wearing his now iconic Zodiac cross symbol, he put fear in the heart of every couple that resided there during that time span. Today we will revisit those nights and see why he was never apprehended. So grab some popcorn and make yourself comfortable. You might be here for a while.
In 1968, an American serial killer announced himself to the world, in a very cryptic way. His methods, lack of motive and letters puzzled the cops for decades. Along with his ciphers, which some have not been solved to this day. The fact that he was never caught leaves a trail of pain for the family of the victims, whom many if any will ever see justice for the slaying of their loved ones. The man claimed to have killed 37, with 5 killed out of 7 attacked, officially confirmed by the police. The man would toy with the police, play with the media and name himself Zodiac. On December 20, 1968. Evil will make its presence known that night. Earlier that day, 17-year-old David Arthur Faraday met up with 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen. The two high schoolers would spend the rest of the day together. It was the couple's first date. They had planned of attending a high school Christmas concert. They would visit a friend and stop at a local restaurant, before ending at a secluded spot in Lake Herman Road on the eastern side of Vallejo, California. That spot was a well-known lover's lane for those that frequented the area. Both David and Betty were seen by witnesses huddled together inside David Mother Rambler station that night. However, by 11:15 p.m. the police responded to a dispatch call about a shooting in that location. A car had pulled up next to David Rambler, as the couple were hoping for some alone time. A figure walked out and approached them. He fired his weapon at the car right rear window, to seemingly scare the kids into exiting the car. David would be the first one hit with a gunshot bullet piercing him in the head above his left ear. Betty tried making a run for it but was unsuccessful, as he did catch up to her and shot her 5 times in the back. Her body will be discovered by the police about 28 feet from their parked car. Body face down and was dead on the scene. However, David was still alive at this time by the passenger side door. An ambulance was summoned and David was rushed to the hospital. Sadly, he too will passed away, as he was announced dead on arrival. As the police secured the area, they concluded that the gunman was using a .22 caliber semi-automatic weapon. They would interrogate a few suspects, in which they believed were not on good terms with the victims. Beside that, they could not name a suspect or a motive behind the murder. It would seem that the killer had gotten away with it and the trail went cold.
7 months later, he will strike again.
Around midnight on July 4, 1969. 19-year-old Michael Renault Majo and 22-year-old Darlene Elizabeth Farron drove into Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. This site is only 4 miles away from the previous murder. Michael recalled them being chased that night and him suggesting they park there. They saw a car park right behind Darlene's car, leaving then returning again 10 minutes later. Due to the time Michael told Darlene to take out her ID, they both assumed it was a police officer. The man was holding a flashlight and walked to the passenger side of Darlene's car. Michael rolled down his window as the figure made its way to his side. The flashlight was so bright it hid the person's face as he was shining it on the car occupants' faces. While retrieving his weapon, a 9mm Luger Before Michael could even open his mouth, the gunman let off 5 shots in the car. Michael hopped to the back of the car as he and Darlene were hit. Satisfied with his work, the gunman started walking back to his car. Michael made his way to the passenger rear side of the car while moaning in pain. The gunman heard Michael moan, thus realizing that he was still alive. Came back and shot he and Darlene 2 more times before leaving. Thankfully, the gunshots alerted those nearby, who in turn called the police. This quick response ended up saving Michael's life. Darlene, however, ended up dying on her way to the hospital. Around 40 minutes later, the gunman stopped at a phone booth just a few blocks away from the police station and made a call. The police picked up and he said, I quote,
"I want to report a double murder. If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find the kids in the brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Good. Bye."
Now, with Michael alive and responsive, the killer had made his first major mistake. Not expecting Michael to survive, the gunman did not use his flashlight to conceal his face the second time. Michael had a good look at him before he shot him again. He would describe him as follow: a tall white man about 5 feet 8 inches tall, light brown curly hair, approximately 26 to 30 years old, weighing about 195 to 200 pounds. The police looked at Darlene's husband, as well as other men she was seen with around that period, for leads. Darlene had dated a few cops as well, as she was quite the catch and many men wanted her. Rumors began swirling that a jealous cop must have done it. Due to the way he approached Darlene's car, it is similar to a routine traffic stop. Michael did state Darlene knew who was chasing them but never told him a name. And despite these revelations by Michael, the police were still unable to track down the Zodiac. Less than a month later, on August 1, 1969, 3 newspapers from California named the San Francisco Examiner, San Francisco Chronicle and Vallejo Times Herald each received letter. These letters were 408 symbol cryptograms split into 3. The killer warned that should these letters not be printed in the front page of the newspaper, he would do more killings. He did not get his way. The newspaper cited that there was no way to verify that the letters were legit. He responded with another letter.
Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking.
It once again described the murders in detail, that no one but the murderer and the police knew. He also kept taunting the police for being unable to catch him, or crack his ciphers. It would have seemed the Zodiac may have spoken too soon, however, as the 408 cipher was cracked less than a week later by Donald Jean, a high school teacher, and his wife Betty June Harden. Despite 18 letters missing, the cipher when decoded read this message:
I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest. Because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all the lone or stray people I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife.
A few weeks later, on a Saturday, September 29, 1969, the Zodiac struck again. This time was at Lake Berryessa in Napa Country. 20 years old, Brian Calvin Hartnell and 22 years old, Cecilia Shepard were having a picnic by the lake. The two had dated years before but parted way. Cecilia was back in town and the two decided to catch up. Due to the shortage of time that day, and the city being too far away, the two changed plans and decided to hang out by the lake instead. During their time there, Cecilia spotted a man about 300 yards away, slowly approaching them. She tried to tell Brian about it, but he wasn't too concerned. He thought it was just someone trying to find a spot to relieve themselves, as it wasn't too uncommon based on their location. The figure kept on creeping in closer and closer and hid behind a tree again, Cecilia noted. At this point the figure put on a mask and was now rapidly approaching. Brian was trying to meet Cecilia's gaze and catch her attention, but she was too distracted. It wasn't until she mentioned that he had a gun, to which Brian finally turned around, but it was too late. The figure was no more than 10 to 15 yards away at this point. A large black hooded figure with glasses was standing before them with his gun drawn. The hooded figure claimed to be an escaped convict from jail, and had killed a guard on his way here. He stated that he needed their car and money to go to Mexico. He reassured them that there was nothing to be afraid of, before instructing them to tie themselves with plastic clothesline that he had pre-cut. Cecilia had tied Brian loosely. The hooded figure caught on and he tightened. While that was happening, Brian saw a window to go after the gun. He asked Cecilia, she said no, and that window closed. The hooded figure tied their feet as well before turning them on their stomach. What would follow can only be described as something straight out of a horror show. The hooded man drew his knife and plugged it onto his victim's back, laughing uncontrollably as he did so again and again and again. He stabbed Brian 6 times and Cecilia 24 times. Brian believes the fact that Cecilia was moving so much may have irritated the hooded figure more. He would stand there for about 10 minutes before walking off. The hooded figure hiked back to the main road, and with a pen left a note on Brian's car for the cops to find. These were the date of all 3 killings. Back to Lake Berryessa, Brian started moving as he planned their escape. He spotted a few boats and shouted, but no one stopped. As time kept on passing and having lost so much blood, both he and Cecilia were hanging on by a thread. Still somewhat conscious, he managed to get Cecilia to untie one of his hands. In successfully doing so, he managed to untie both of them. Brian, desperate, started to walk back up toward his car, to get help for Cecilia. He would take 5 to 10 feet intervals so he doesn't pass out. He would reach the top and stumble upon a police car that were alerted by the guys on the boat, the same ones that he was calling out for a while back. The police made its way to Cecilia and waited for an emergency vehicle to get there. Due to the mountain terrain, that would take a lot longer than anticipated. Later that day, around 7:30 p.m., the Zodiac made a call from a phone booth just a few blocks away from the local police station. In Zodiac fashion, he wanted to report on his latest crime. Here is what he had to say.
I want to report a murder. No, a double murder. They are 2 miles north of park headquarters. They were in a white Volkswagen Common Gear. I'm the one that did it.
The Zodiac left the phone unhooked so that the police could track it. It was now obvious that he was taunting the cops for their inability to catch him. The ambulance got there and the two were rescued. On their way to the hospital, Cecilia slipped into a coma soon after and passed away 2 days later. Before passing on, Cecilia gave the police a critical description of the Zodiac. A detective took notes at the scene. Here was her description of the Zodiac. A heavy-set build male, weighing about 225 plus pounds, between 5 feet 8 inches to 6 feet tall. Dark brown hair that was showing through the eye holes of his hood. She had a good look at him since she was observing him make his way to her picnic area. Sadly, with her passing, the Zodiac had now claimed his 4th victim.
And the scary part, he still wasn't done.
On October 11, 1969, in the middle of San Francisco, Routine cab driver Paul Lee Stein, aged 29, was making his round around the busy streets. He would pick up a passenger at the intersection of Mason and Geary Street, and ask to be dropped off at Maple Street, in Presidio Heights. For reasons unknown, the passenger shot Paul Stein once in the head with a 9mm weapon. The noise was so loud it caught the attention of everyone in the vicinity. The passenger then exited the vehicle, but before leaving took Paul Stein's keys, wallet, and ripped a piece of his bloody shirt. He then proceeded to walk away from the scene calmly. These actions were observed by teenagers across the street at 9:55 p.m. Realizing what had just taken place, they alerted the police. At this point, Officer Armand Policetti was only 2 blocks away and ended up being the first at the scene. Now, whether in what can only be called one of the biggest blunders in police crime stop history. The suspect description that was coming out from dispatch to the police scanner was of an adult N.E.G.R.O. male. Translation: an adult African American male. In case you missed it, this was the 1960s after all. Right as that broadcast came, Officer Don Falk, who was patrolling the eastern side of the Richmond district, came face to face with the Zodiac. They drove past the actual killer, slowly down only for about 5 to 10 seconds, before continuing down the block. The suspect description on the police radio of an African American male, about 5 feet 10 inches, did not match the white male, 5 feet 8 inches, stocky, reddish-brown crew cut, low-cut shoes, and rimmed glasses. Standing in front of them, so the officer did not waste too much time and passed him by. Officer Armand at the crime scene came to a shocking realization. While gathering information from witnesses about their descriptions of the suspect was in fact a white male. He then got his police radio to correct the mix-up about the suspect description. However, it was too late. The Zodiac was long gone. He was last seen entering Presidio Park and disappearing in its shadows. The police secured the crime scene soon after and retrieved some fingerprints. Not much more than that was ever disclosed to the media. Not one to let such an opportunity to taunt the police go by, the Zodiac killer recalled that interaction with the police in one of the dozens of letters he would send the following year. One of those letters arrived just 3 days later with a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt, thus proving without a shadow of a doubt that he is the killer. In the letters, the Zodiac stated things such as,
"I was leaving fake clothes for the police to run all over town."
At another point in the letter, the Zodiac stated,
"School children makes nice targets. I think I should wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot at the front tire, then pick up the kiddies as they come bouncing out."
The Zodiac also later included diagrams of bombs that could be used on buses, just to drive his point home. A few days later, on October 22, 1969, somebody claiming to be the Zodiac called the police and requested that lawyers Melvin Bell, or F. Lee Bailey, make a guest appearance on an AM show called AM San Francisco. The show host Jim Dunbar and famous lawyer Melvin Bell accepted this proposal. The show went live and the Zodiac copycat actually called. He would state things such as his head hurt, and that his name was Sam. They asked the Zodiac to turn himself in, and they would help him. He actually took the offer. He agreed to surrender himself at a location called Daly City. To no one's surprise, however, he didn't show. Meanwhile, the lawyer was making a public spectacle out of it. To possibly boost up his reputation even more, the ratings were through the roof. It would be confirmed to be a hoax by the Zodiac killer himself in the next letter he sent to the police. On November 8, 1969, the police received an unmarked letter, containing another cryptogram named the cipher Z340. This cipher would remain unsolved for 51 years, it would eventually be cracked on December 12, 2020. By 3 men, a software developer named David Oronchuk, a computer programmer named Jarl Vanik, and a mathematician named Sam Blake. The contents of this cryptogram is something the police of the time did not find a solution to. This was due to the Zodiac not only increasing its difficulty but also the spelling mistakes he made in it. However, it now confirms that the AM San Francisco Zodiac call was a fake. Here is cipher Z340 decoded.
I hope you are having a lot of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. Which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. Because I now have enough slaves to work for me, where everyone else has nothing. When they reach paradise, so they are afraid of death. I am not afraid, because I know that my new life will be an easy one. In paradise, death.
This cipher gives us a glimpse into the psychotic mind of the Zodiac and also the delusion he fights with every day. These along other cipher, such as cipher Z13, labeled My Name, are among the last main clues the Zodiac killer left the police. And as swiftly as he came, he left soon after, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake, writing his name in the history books as one of America's most mysterious and elusive killers.
So, just who or what was the Zodiac? Over the years, these three men were labeled as major person of interest over the Zodiac killing. But what makes them good candidates for the role? Let us start with the person on our right, Ross Sullivan. Ross Sullivan was an ex-soldier that was present on the day that Sherry Jobate lost her life. She was brutally murdered in a Zodiac-style attack on college ground. Sherry Jobate was last seen at the library where Ross worked. She was killed at some point after that when she reached her car and it wouldn't start. The killer had sabotaged her car prior and then offered to help. That is when it is believed he struck. Footprints made by military-type boots were found at the scene. This was the style of shoes Ross wore on campus daily. It doesn't help his case that he did not show up for the next few days after the murder was announced. When he finally did show up, he had switched up his attire style completely. He also had a basic military training on how to create and decipher cryptograms. Now on to suspect number 2, center named Arthur Lee Allen. Arthur was the only one ever arrested by the police. Not only did he match the description of the Zodiac seen by Cecilia Shepard, but he had also told family members that he was heading to Lake Berryessa for a swim, the same lake where Cecilia and Brian were stabbed by the Zodiac. He was later seen covered in blood with a bloody knife in his car on the day that Cecilia and Brian were stabbed. Cops later found bomb blueprint in his home after he was arrested on child molestation charges. While in jail, the Zodiac letters mysteriously stopped coming. And when placed in a lineup a few years later, the Blue Rock Spring Park shooting survivor Mike McGough picked out Arthur as the man that tried to kill him that night. You are probably saying, with all those evidence pointing at him, he must be the Zodiac. But no. The fingerprints picked out of Paul Stein's cab did not match Arthur's. And with those two suspects out of the way, our final suspect, number 3, is named Lawrence Kane. Lawrence Kane was seen by Darlene's sister harassing her for weeks prior to her murder. He matched the frame of the Zodiac seen at Paul Stein's murder. He also lived only 6 minutes away from the location where it is believed Paul Stein picked up his killer. On the night of March 22, 1970, Kane disabled a woman named Kathleen John's car before offering her and her baby a ride to a gas station. After passing a few gas stations, Kane opened up to Kathleen about his intention with her that night. He was telling her that he was going to kill her and her baby. Kathleen, realizing her baby's life was in danger, jumped out the car as Kane slowed down to make a turn. She then ran into the woods nearby. This incident was later described in detail in one of the Zodiac's letters. Even scarier, when put in a lineup, Kathleen picked out Kane as the man who picked her up that night. Regardless of whom the Zodiac may have been, if any of those three men, all three men, a cult group, or one of the men above, one thing is for certain: with all three men now expired, dead, we might never know who was the Zodiac. That is the conclusion most investigators today use to rationalize the end of such a monster. But one thing about this life is that without an actual ID of the Zodiac, one can never be too sure. So who knows, maybe the Zodiac is still out there somewhere, continuing where he left off. So the next time an old man offers you a rose, be very wary, as that rose might just be pretty enough to be placed on your tombstone. You just never know these days, especially when the Zodiac site is fixated on you. That becomes a very strong possibility. Anyways, thank you for watching. This took me about 6 hours to edit, so I would really appreciate it if you guys give me a thumbs up. If you like this, and I would try to post more stories at least once or twice a month. I'm gonna try to get this YouTube thing going, to be dedicated. I still have a few more stories in the chamber, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. But until then, this will have to do. Later. That's all, folks. See you in the next video.